Well, g'day, Max here again, welcome back to the shop. So this week's episode, after a lot of dramas with my computer that spat the chewy, what actually happened was, I don't know what happened, something happened to it. I lost my editing program, so I've been mad rush trying to learn a new program and get things back on track again, so we're nearly back on track. So anyway, we're going to get our tailstock back together, get that all assembled up back on the lathe, and it's only just occurred to me that I forgot to machine the zigzag groove underneath the tailstock. This was a comment by Doug Lester mentioned about doing something like that on his tailstock, from Doug Lester from Metalworks Machine Shop, and at the time I didn't even give it a thought, and so I will have to readdress that later on. So anyway, there's a couple of the first shots are taken on my phone because I couldn't upload any more photos off the iPad onto the computer while it was down. So yeah, I was just very lucky, didn't lose any video footage or photos or anything like that. So anyway, I did get a couple of purchases, a couple of slitting saws, so just an ordinary 4mm wide 32 tooth slitting saw, and I did get this little carbide one as well. This is a 72 tooth one. Now I think this one will be good for our upcoming project of the R8 tooling we're going to make for the Bridgeport, as this will do the keyway slot in the R8 tooling. So I've got in my scraptonium pile some pre-hardened and hardened shafts and bits and pieces, old pins and that sort of thing. So I can just scratch it with a file, so if I can do that I can machine it, fingers crossed. So that will involve a bit of turning and ID and OD grinding with my grinding equipment that I have here. So anyway, let's swing on to the tailstock and get that back together. Okay, remember the two oil feed holes in the lower half of the tailstock that went nowhere? Well, I just started drilling a cross hole to put the oil feed through, and I just marked the spot up 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom, and the drill wandered off straight into this bogged up cross hole. So it's looking like they'd drilled them and bogged over them, and so the oilers hadn't been fitted. So that's a new one. So I wonder what will happen when I drill the other side. I might actually have a poke around just a bit further up from where I've marked it. We'll see what happens. And the other side was the same, so I found the locations a bit lower down than where I was going to drill them. It's yeah, another bogged up oil hole. So that's pretty amazing. Okay, it's time to get our tailstock reassembled. So I've cleaned all the parts up. We'll go through our modifications as we assemble it. So we'll start with the base plate first. So all our holes are drilled now. So as you've seen in the previous clip, when we were drilling, or we started to drill, the drill wandered into the one of the original holes, which was filled full of bog. So why they've done that, I don't know. So what we're going to do, we have these small oilers, so we're going to knock these in the hole, so we just sit them on top. Hopefully a couple of taps with a nylon block. That's it, and they're in. So same goes for the other side. Just want to set our block in a gap and a bit of timber here I've got on the mill table. Shall we set him in square? Okay, that's that one in. Now what I've done on this tailstock base, I've pre-drilled for way wipers on both ends, and I've drilled it the same hole pattern to take up the Lathe's original way wipers. Now these way wipers, these are the original, they're like a rubbery type thing. They're sort of, they do the job but only just. I tried to ring up the suppliers, the agents for the lathes over here, and see if they were in stock, but they have to come from the factory over in Taiwan, so that's a couple of months away. So I don't know, I'm going to have a think about which way I'm going to go with way wipers. I did want to make my own ones up, but if I make them I'd rather go with a dual type wiper, which has the scraper like this at the front and then a felt behind. So I'm still deliberating a bit with that one at this stage. So okay, well that's all our base modifications complete. And now it's time to assemble the quill into the tailstock. So if I find my oil can, which is over here because it leaks, I've had to bring out my old one. I dropped my good flexible spout one and broke the bloody spout off on it. Put a bit of oil up the bore. Now, the first part to go in is the locking arm for the quill, and there's a little brass locking mechanism. It has a scallop in it which pulls up against the quill. That just threads onto the shaft. Now there's an adjustment depending on how far this screws onto the shaft will determine the position that the lever finishes up in when the quill is locked. It's just a matter of I'm going to go another half a turn, just feeling it with your finger, pushing it round. If it had a screwdriver slot on the end there, it would make life easy, but it doesn't. Make sure we put our quill in the right way round. We just adjust this lever till it feels good. That feels pretty good there. We'll try back it off one turn just to try a different position. Yeah, no, one turn's no good, it goes right over. Okay. Okay. So we'll put our, remember we have the locating screw to go in here. This is just a dog point set screw, a grub screw with a locking nut. Just get him in till he touches and just back him off a bit. That's fine. This binds up when I tighten that up, so let's see what's going on with that. Okay. Now the next part to go in is the bronze nut. Which is held in by 3 cap screws. It's a matter of finding the holes. Yeah. You could put this nut on before you put the quill in, but I think this is an easier way, as we've got our dog point grub screw there, stops the quill from rotating, and we've got the quill lock assembled up there now as well. So okay. Now I did drill through into the quill bore there and put an extra oiler there, and with the Dremel I just cut a slot. I should have showed you on camera before I put the quill back in. I just cut a slot on top of the bore just with a ball nosed cutter in the Dremel, and that allows just a passage for the oil to sit in. So okay, so the next part to go in, we have the threaded rod and the thrust bearings for the quill. Just a bit of grease. Then we have a thrust bearing. Chuck a bit of grease on it. Plenty of grease, because it's you have to disassemble all this to get any grease in anywhere, so a little bit extra doesn't hurt. Okay, so that, some more grease on the thread. The thread does get oil from this oil point here, but it doesn't hurt to have a whack of grease on there too, just to make an oily, greasy slurry. We'll put a bit of grease inside the nut as well, just to okay, so the quill thread is a left-hand thread. Now we have an end cap here. And this retains the back of the bearing. Which is held on by 3 more cap screws. So they're just nipped down into place. And then we had our so I think I'll leave the hand wheel for now because we've got the keyway and the hand wheel. I think we'll flip her over now at this stage and assemble the bottom part. Now, we've also drilled, just here there's an oiler. You see it there, and one on top just there. Now what that will do will allow a bit of oil to go through to these bores where the clamping pivot clamps. So as before there was nothing to lubricate them at all, you just had to pre-pack it with grease. What I did find, the chrome was peeling off on the pivot shaft, on the clamping. It's like a cam. So the clamping part goes over here, and when it rotates it lifts up due to the cam action. So all these parts were like satin chrome type thing, and it was peeling off on here and looking a bit gnarly, so I polished that all off, so make sure she all sits in there good. So we have, I'll just run a bit of grease on this for now, just for assembly purposes. And a bit of grease inside the bore for the clamping arm. Yeah, it just goes down to there, and dangles down. We'll just wipe off our excess. Okay, so we have to re-tighten up this, because if you remember we had to unscrew this out of the cam ring there. We re-tighten this down. And remove our lock nuts. Now the other part we modified, if you remember our roll pin that we had to drill and run a tap down to get out, and we're going to not use that, but what we are going to use is a grub screw, and I've just very easily just ground a little dog point on the end of it, so that'll fit in the slot in the shaft where that roll pin used to sit. So we just got to get the right location for the shaft. So I think the grease is causing a bit of an air lock or something. I can't see the. Yeah, the grease is trapping the air. When I was test fitting the screw, it went straight in. You think it will go like that when you do it on camera? It's actually the grease in it that I've put in this lower bore. It's air locking. There it goes. So we don't tighten this up, this screw will just sit in there. So I might go and just put a drop of blue Loctite on that, that will hold that in position. I'll go and get some Loctite and come back. Okay, blue Loctite's gone walkabout, so I'll just put a bit of 680 on it. Just a drop. Okay. And our handle. Supposed to screw in. Oh, that's it. Okay, that feels good. I might put a little drop on this handle as well, because this is continually coming loose. does give you the shits. Okay. Now, we're ready for our base plate. I'll just put a little smear of grease under here. And on the base plate. Keep the rust at bay. Okay, so our base plate. Goes on that way. Now, if you remember in the other episode we were talking about the marks the locking cap screws were leaving on this base plate and influencing the way the tailstock locked up when you were trying to do an offset, when you were sliding the base across it. They had like a cone point and it was sort of slightly moving this as you tighten them up. So I've just machined a little dog point on both of them, so that should take care of that problem. Find the Allen key, maybe this one, here we are. Okay, now we have our locking screws on the side. I actually might just go and do the same thing to these. I think these still have the these still have these hollow, it's actually a hollow point type thing that bites in. It's not a real ideal affair, so I'll just duck off and I'll just quickly face these off in the lathe. Okay, we've just machined a small dog point on the end of these locking screws as well, the adjuster screws. So they go in the side here. Means they'll tighten up nice and flat on the mating surface. We just lightly nip that. Lightly nip up the adjusters at the rear. And then we have our clamping piece to go on. Now, their original, well, there's a washer and a lock nut. Their original washer is a piss poor made out of some sort of cheese steel. So that's going. So we'll get a substantial, a proper washer. That goes into place there. And then our lock nut, which we will adjust this lock nut when it's on the back on the lathe bed. Okay, so the last part to go on is the hand wheel. Bring you back into the picture with the adjustable table. Okay, so we have our keyway to line up on the hand wheel. Just the little key goes in. Hand wheel goes on. And just the top hat adjuster nut with the, remember it has that grub screw in the middle to lock it. so that the screws into place there. That takes the end play out of everything. So I'm just doing that sort of hand tight. And then the lock nut gets nipped, the locking grub screw in the middle. You nip that one up. I might just back that off a tad. Okay. That all feels good, nice and smooth. Now, the tailstock did have a silly oil seal at the front of it. Now this seal was only super glued on the face, so that's a pretty, doesn't sit in a retainer, recess or nothing, that is glued it on the face. So majority of lathes don't have a seal there anyway, so that's going, not required. So I think we're pretty right now. We can mount this back up on the lathe and then see where our thoughts lead in the direction that we're going to go with our way wipers.